What's going on, guys? My name is Kevin. Really not much of a YouTube person, so you're not going to really see my face in this, but I just wanted to make a quick video showing some details on how I put my C5 Corvette on airbags. When I was wanting to do this myself, I was able to find some information here and there around the internet, but there wasn't really one specific video that covered a lot of the little details. Me being an airbag newbie, there are a lot of questions that I had that I couldn't really find the answers to, so I just wanted to make a quick video and cover how I did it. I just did this recently. I used Maxload Bags with Airlift 3P management. Some of the info in this video is going to be specific to those bags, but the majority of it's going to be pretty universal. So for mine, I started with the rear. I've got the car on stands right now because I'm about to be swapping to a different set of Longtube headers seen over there, which I will address later in the video. That is a concern of swapping to air suspension, depending on how low you air out. First step is going to be removing the leaf springs on the rear. It's fairly easy. Rear is actually the easiest. You undo the low ring bolts from each of the control arms, and then underneath, right up, let me see, where's the spot? Right here where these two bolt holes are, that's where the bolts mount. There's 4 of them total, 2 per side. Those had a metric shit ton of Loctite on them. It took some muscling to get out. It was surprising, honestly. The rear is easy. You undo those and undo the lowering bolts from the control arms, and the spring pulls out as one unit. For the front, it is a little more complicated. I'll include a link that I followed for how to do it. Similar setup, you have to undo the 4 mounting bolts underneath, but I actually ended up unbolting the stock shock, upper control arm mounts, I believe the tie rods as well. And you basically need to lower the entire front spindle out of the way so that you can shift the stock spring towards one side of the car. The spring rests right here on the control arm. It tucks up like this and goes across to the side of the car. So you need to basically shift the spring that way so you can pull it out the bottom here, and then it'll come out one side. Other people also just take a Sawzall to it, which is your easier method. I didn't do that because I wanted to keep mine intact, but that is an option too. If you want to, you can just hacksaw it out. So then back looking at the rear of the car again, to remove the shocks, it's very, very easy. 2 bolts up top right here, and there's 1 on the bottom right here. Bolts, it's a 3 bolt. Undo those, compressor shock, and it pulls right out. The next step is right here. You're going to need a C6 upper control arm, rear upper control arm, 1 per side. And bear in mind, it is either a base model C6 or a Cadillac XLR. I'll put a picture up comparing the 3 of them, the stock C5, base C6/XLR, and a C6 Z06. The Z06 will not directly bolt up. I didn't discover this until I had these out. It was kind of a pain in the ass because I had to return them, but you'll see here, the stock one on the C5 is a bolt through design. On a C6 Z06, the upper control arm in the rear is not a bolt through design. It's very much like the front that uses these little dog bones with 4 bolts per side. That's how it mounts in the rear on a C6 Z06. So while the control arms are the same exact dimensions, it's not going to be a direct bolt and fit. You realistically have to press out the old bushings and then press new ones in. Too much of a headache. I didn't want to deal with it, so I just got base model ones instead and returned the Z06. So I just wanted to highlight that. But the rear is actually the easiest out of the front or the rear. You basically swap the control arm out, easy peasy. The shock bolts right in. This is the Maxload shock here. Bolts the same spot on the bottom. Bolts up to the top. I will highlight that the top up here on the very top of the shock, I believe I have a picture of it that I'll put up as well, is your dampening adjustment knob. It is inaccessible when it's bolted in, so you will want to set your damping adjustment before getting everything installed in on the rear. The front you can still get to, which is easy enough. I'm over here looking at the passenger side rear now. One quick thing I wanted to note is you'll need to undo the upper ball joint here, which sounds easy enough. I had this style ball joint remover tool to begin with, and it didn't fit over, it didn't work. I couldn't get it on over the control arm to compress that nut. There just wasn't room. I'd probably have to like remove the axle. I didn't want to deal with all that. So use this style here. I had to go buy one of these, very cheap, no biggie, but just to save yourself a headache, get this style tool, because it's a little dark, but it clamps right onto the control arm like so, and you can actually stretch this out to grab the top of the bolt, and it pops right out. It's very, very easy. It was like 10 bucks, I think, for this tool, so definitely worth it to grab one of those. So now moving around to the front, this is where I spent the majority of the time on this job, because the front is nowhere near as easy of a bolt-in swap as the rear is. First, you'll need to remove the front shock, which is just like the rear's. There's 3 bolts, undo the 3 up here, one a little further in towards the engine. Down underneath, if I can get my light on it, there's 2 bolts right in here, 2 nuts where the shock mounts to the lower control arm. Undo those, compress it, and you can pull it right out. Getting the new air spring and shock assembly in is not as easy, because the stock shock is a single bolt design. There's 1 bolt on the top hat here, whereas the Maxload shock, as you see, has 3. Let me zoom it out a tiny bit. 1 here, 1 here, and 1 inward. Those holes do not exist, so you have to drill 3 holes into here. I don't know if you can see it very well. There is a little thin piece, it's almost like a washer right here, that comes with the Maxload shock. It's the same exact size and dimensions as this. It's just, a millimeter thin, roughly. Use that as a template. You can put it up against here and tape it, and then use that as your template to drill your holes. This is not the thickest steel, but it doesn't drill very easily. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what sized drill bits I used, but I stepped them up. I started with a slow one, or my smaller one, and then increased size. Drilling through steel, you want to just drill slowly. I just used a low speed, just kept it low, took my time with it. It took a little while, but I used 1 single drill bit to drill all 6 holes per side. Once you get those done, sorry for the shakiness, then you have to actually, where the adjustment knob is here, you have to drill out the existing mounting hole to about 1 inch. I'll see if I have a photo that I can put up that shows the way the top of the shock looks, but there's a nut that sticks out a little bit, and the whole assembly has to be able to pivot slightly. So you have to drill that out. I used a 1 inch steel drill bit, same thing as before. Just go really slow with it, take your time. It's really annoying because it catches and twists your impact, your drill, whatever you're using. So just take your time with that, but that has to be drilled out to about 1 inch. And then once all those are drilled, then you can mount in all 3 mounting bolts up here, and there will be enough room for the whole assembly to pivot around a little bit. Now for the next step, this is where it gets specific to the Maxload bags. It's still going to be an issue with other air springs, but this video is specifically speaking in terms of Maxload bags. As you can see, there's a little bit of a gap. Sorry, I'm trying to get my light on it. It's a little bit of a gap between the top of the shock and where the bag starts. The bag is a little bit lower on the entire assembly than other brands. Some of the brands, I want to say AirTech maybe, I don't know, I'm not an expert on them, but the bag itself is a little higher, and that causes more clearance with your control arm here. I'll see if I can grab my light. Show, again, this is at max height right now. You'll see there is no contact, but it does get fairly close. You need to shave down the upper control arm for clearance, because you don't want there to be any sort of rubbing between the control arm and the bag itself. Now I do want to stress that on a Maxload setup, This is only really a concern at your like highest ride height. So right now, car's off the ground, the suspension is drooping. This is as high as it'll ever go. And there's not really any concern here. It's not hitting. Even fully inflated, there's no contact. Am I ever driving this high? Honestly, no. Even airing up to 100 PSI for my monster truck status, it's still not quite this high. It's like a ½ inch lower because the weight of the car is on the springs. So you will need to shave them down some. It's going to be a lot of trial and error. And I actually did a combination of shaving down the arms, as well as I'm running like, I believe 1 or 2 washers right here behind where the control arm mounts to the body. So in order to shave those down, you're gonna wanna undo all 4 of these bolts up top, and you need to undo this and pop the upper ball joint out of the control arm, and then it'll come right out. This is a perfect time if you want to replace your upper ball joints. I did mine. I also did tie rods and I did brakes because everything was apart, everything was out of the way. So I figured it's, half the job's already done. I just did those. One thing I really want to stress, as you take the control arm out, you're gonna be doing a lot of trial and error, shaving some down, mounting it back up to see what your clearance is, removing it again, shaving some more, etc. These bolts here thread into riv nuts that are in the frame. The riv nuts are incredibly easy to strip out because these bolts don't line up 100% straight each time you're putting it on. Be very careful with those. I stripped one out on the passenger side and I had to chase it out with the tap and die kit. Thankfully, I was able to clean up the threads and use them. However, if the threads get too messed up, you're gonna need to basically like hammer out the riv nut and install a new one, which is just gonna add a lot of extra time to this. So be very careful threading these 4 bolts in and out. So basically once you remove that, I have a very crude setup here, but I just throw it in a vise. I guess I should say, while it's still mounted on here, I think you can probably still see it on mine. Make some marks. You can see Sharpie marks there for roughly where it was contacting. It's majority of the inside and the underneath, down under here, is where you're gonna be contacting the bag. You don't really need to shave any up top, so it's like directly against the bag and a little underneath is where you're gonna do most of your shaving. I just threw it up here in my vise. I'll put a link in the description, but I use these exact cutoff wheels. They made very easy work, grinding wheels, not cutoff wheels, made very easy work of the aluminum. Just take your time very slowly, just a little bit at a time. It's gonna make a really bad mess. There were aluminum shavings everywhere. So wherever you do your grinding, just keep that in mind, throw a tarp down or something. But yes, this took a while. Grind it, throw it back on. I pretty much just aligned it up, tightened like 1 or 2 bolts down, like 1 bolt per side, roughly. Slid the spindle ball joint back in, and then just measured. Look to see how close it was. If it was still hitting, take it off, grind some more, and keep going. The other thing I will mention before mounting up your freshly shaved control arm is when the car is under load, the entire assembly is gonna shift upwards. The bag actually is gonna compress all the way up and it folds over on itself, which is by design. You'll notice there's a little like trapezoid shaped cutout in the shock tower, like right here. I noticed with mine, when I would compress the suspension all the way, the bag would fold over and it was just barely touching that. I didn't like that. I don't want any sort of contact between the bag and the shock tower, even though this is a rounded edge right here. I didn't like it. I figured it's off the ground, I've got all my tools out. So what I did is I just cut, as you can see, a notch in. It goes about 1 inch towards the engine, about 1.5 inches up and out in a trapezoid shape. Once you have the bag mounted up, jack up from the bottom of the suspension right here, bottom of the control arm. It'll compress it all the way, and then you'll see if there's any contact or if it's getting close. Like I said, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time at all the way maxed out suspension like this, but I am gonna spend quite a bit of time aired out fully with the car completely compressed. So I didn't want any contact. So I just notched my strut towers here. Other brands, like I said earlier in the video, that have the bag mounted higher up on the shock assembly, they have to cut like up here on both sides, pretty much all the way back and down. Didn't have to do this on these, thankfully. This also might be just a little overkill. It might not have caused an issue, but again, this took me an extra half hour or so per side. I just used an angle grinder and a Sawzall, and it made easy work cutting through those. Now, once you have shaved it enough and you have plenty of clearance, mine is a little close. I probably could have shaved a little more, but this was fine for me. I've been driving it around for several months now and it hasn't contacted once. Once you have it good, you can mount this back up, get everything torqued back down. Lastly, like I mentioned on the rears, you're unable to access the damping adjustment knob while it's mounted. You can on the front, you can get through it right here. Zoom in a little. This is a knob right here sticking out the top. I believe even from the engine side, yeah, you can reach through. It's a little tight to reach, but it's right down there. So the fronts are fully adjustable while they're mounted up. The rears, the only thing you can adjust while it's mounted is the damping knob itself. You have to like undo the top 2 bolts, compress the shock down, and adjust it. So now, once you have everything mounted up, shocks and bags, it is time to move on to airlines and your management and mapping out your trunk setup. So this is how I did mine. I used a 5-gallon end port tank, dual compressors, and like I said, I'm running Airlift 3P management. These are all mounted to a piece of wood, a piece of MDF that is underneath the carpet, just drilled in. It's all very sturdy, it's not going anywhere. But yes, I did not mount anything down until I ran the lines and the harness fully. Mounting everything was the last step, but you kind of want to get an idea of how you want things to be mounted first. For the rear, your lines are going to come off of, oops, here we go. They're going to come off the manifold. I'll pull this out the middle compartment in a minute and show you. They come right through here, and this is fiberglass in these cubbies. I just drilled a couple holes. One of them on the driver's side here is the vent, the exhaust essentially for when you air out. All the air escapes through that line. The second one is for the bag itself. They come out underneath right here. You can put some grommets if desired. You're gonna wanna zip tie them up out of the way. And the line just comes down and right into the fitting right here. These little Maxload like beauty rings or whatever, they're like the same material as like Livestrong bracelets or whatnot, I Heart boobies. They don't really stay on. You can probably just take them off before you even get started with installing. But just measure your line. So basically start it on one end and make sure you have plenty to go up through where you're running it and up to the manifold. Take your time with this. This is actually way easier than I thought it was gonna be. A lot more fun also. I kind of enjoy making things look clean and tucking things away. But just make sure you have enough before you start cutting your lines, because you have plenty to do it, but you can run out. So measure twice and cut once and it'll come out good. One thing to mention for the rears, with your lines coming out through the cubbies, they're a good distance here from the mufflers, but these do radiate some heat, and over time it might have an impact on these lines. I'm gonna be doing it while the car's up in the air now, but I bought some, I think it's like 1/4 inch fuel line. I'm just gonna cut sections of it that are long enough to fit right here, slice it long ways down the middle, and it should just like a hot dog bun, just like go right over these, and that'll give it a little bit of heat shielding from the exhaust. It might not be that big of an issue, because I mean, you've got these lines right here, which I believe are for the handbrake, and they've been there since 2004 without issue. But since this is a pressurized line, I don't want to take any risks, so I'm going to be putting some extra heat shielding there. For the fronts, they came off the manifold, and I ran them right here. This line here goes up to the front. Under the carpet, it goes all the way up, basically to the speaker trim, over the little bulkhead hump there right behind the seat. Let me come around this way. I tried to tuck this away pretty well so you won't be able to see too much of it, but it comes through, goes underneath the trim right here, all under this trim. It tucks underneath this trim here, goes up. Can't really see it, but right behind the dead pedal, it comes out, or I guess right in front of it, I should say. And I just drilled a hole. I already had an existing one for my wideband and another gauge. It just drills in the front of the firewall. It's also fiberglass, very easy to drill. You'll need to take off this piece of the fender liner, which is very easy. There's like 7 or 10 whatever bolts all along. There's a few underneath. Take this off. You'll see the line coming through. Maxload comes with 2 stainless steel leader lines. You can get more if you want. You don't even need to use them. I just put them in the front because the front suspension articulates a little more. But I ran 1 leader line from here, tucks up there to keep it out of the way of moving parts, and it comes down and tucks right here into, basically into this compartment, and that's where it connects to the line from the manifold. On the passenger side, same exact thing. However, you're also gonna run your the Airlift harness that direction too. There's a lot of harness down in here. I haven't cleaned this up fully, just in case. Like I said, I've only had this for a few months. I wanted to make sure there were no issues or anything that I needed to change or adjust before like zip tying and shrink wrapping everything and making it look all pretty and then having to undo it. But you're gonna want your front liners to go the same way as the passenger, tucks up here under the carpet, and your harnesses, once you get those mapped out following the instructions, are gonna follow this same route. So I ran them up under the carpet here, same as the driver's side, to the speaker trim. It comes all down through here, under this trim. Again, airline and harness are going through here. And they'll come out up here, and there's an existing grommet where the main harness comes through the firewall. You can use that. You'll probably have to trim or cut a little slit for it all to slip through. It actually is gonna split there. Your airline, just like the driver's side, is gonna come out through your fender liner here. Same exact thing, just mirrored. Use the 1 leader line. I use it on the front. It tucks behind the trim, and that's where the airline connects. Now your harnesses are all gonna come through. Can't really see it, but it's way back down here. They'll come through here, and this is where you wire it to your battery, your ground, and I've got it going off of, I can't remember what fuse it is off the top of my head, but it's a fuel pump fuse, which your 5-volt line, the pink one here, gets power from, and that's how it stays powered during, when the battery is on, the key is on, and during cranking. It keeps your Airlift, the 3P controller on. Now back here looking at the back once more. For me, I took the harness lines from each compressor. I just cut a tiny slit in the carpet and fed the wires through, and I used just some wire loom from AutoZone just to make it pretty, make it blend in a little more than just a bright red wire. Everything's gonna come back here. Follow your instructions in the Airlift manual. It's very, very nice for explains how to hook everything up, relays and whatnot. Again, somewhat of a temporary setup like I mentioned, just because I wanted to make sure everything works fine. I just mounted a little piece of wood back here that I mounted the compressor relays to and the water filter. Once I'm sure everything is fine, which I think I'm about at that stage, once everything is good and I'm ready to start trimming everything, like I haven't even trimmed off my zip lines here, that's my zip ties. I'll probably use a slightly better looking mounting solution, but this has worked for now. So once you get everything plugged in and mapped and your lines trimmed, again, follow the instructions to use the cutting tool, and you have everything mounted, or like all your lines and your wires ran, then you'll be able to start mounting your compressors, tank, and manifold for however you prefer to do it. So just to give an idea of how my lines are running, I'm running dual compressors as seen back here. There are 2 lines going into the tank and 2 lines coming out of the tank. So these 2 lines right here come from the compressors into the tank. This line right here goes from the tank. It goes around the back. Let me show you here. Comes around from the tank through this line right here, goes into the water filter. You'll notice on the water filter, let me see if I can see it here for you, there is an arrow that says in. Make sure it is directional, so make sure that's your line going in. The arrow points towards the manifold. So again, compressors go into the tank. The one line comes out of the tank. I've got it running under the carpet going into the water filter. The other line coming out of the water filter goes right up here into this bundle, back into the manifold. Main purpose is because the compressors do generate some water moisture over time, and we don't want that moisture getting into the manifold itself, so that's where the water filters run in line. There is a little, it's right here on the bottom, can't really see it, but there's a little pin that you can push. It's a little valve. Just stick a cup underneath it, push that pin, and it'll drain any water out. I've been running this for a few months and I haven't had any water collect, which is great, but it is an issue for some climates. Looking at the tank again, I've got this line blocked off because I don't need it, but the last line that comes from the tank is all the way on the bottom, right under here. It comes out and goes, I've got mine running under the carpet. It goes like right around here, and this is the line coming out. There's two things this line does. This piece right here is a purge line, like a pressure relief valve, basically, for if the tank ever gets overpressurized, it'll just vent right here. Oops. And then I've got a little bit more coming off, and it comes over here to, which is just a Schrader valve, which you can use to manually drain or fill the tank if needed. If your compressors crap out, you can hook them up to a pump and or a separate compressor and still fill the tank if needed. One more thing I wanted to mention, the compressors come with, I can't remember, I think they're like 18-inch, maybe 15-inch leader lines. I wanted stainless steel ones to look like this. They didn't reach where I wanted them to mount in this configuration without having way too harsh bends. So I just opted, I ended up ordering, I think these are 36-inch lines, which are a little longer than what I really need, but I think they look great. It just unscrews right here. It's very tight, so be careful with these, and you don't want to over tighten these. Then the new one screws on. I also got the upgraded check valves, which go right here. Is this piece here between the tank and your leader line. One last thing to mention is the Airlift controller itself, which I mounted right here. For a little while, I just had it loose. It was just resting right here. It's a USB cord that's part of the harness. So again, like I mentioned, I had my harness running from the manifold under the trunk up through the speaker trim to here. This is where I had the USB cord split off. You might actually be able to see some of it back here. Just a little excess in case I want to move it around. But I actually have it running up under the center console trim. It feeds all the way through under here and back around behind this. And I don't use the ashtray for anything, so that's where I mounted my controller. This is a permanent solution, well, semi-permanent. It's just 3M double stick tape that's holding it in. You could use like Velcro if you want. You could get a cup holder mount. I may end up switching it around at some point, but this is good enough for me because you can also hide it if you want to. The cover still works just as expected. All right, now that you've got everything wired up, everything installed, make sure all your bolts are torqued to spec. Make sure your lines are trimmed straight and seated properly. Make sure your fittings are wrapped properly and tightened down as needed. You don't want to over tighten them, of course. Basically, once everything is attached and bolted down, you can turn your car on and make sure you've got power to your controller. Assuming you do, you're good to get this onto the ground. Now, if you're like me, I've never had a car on bags. I don't have any experience with them aside from doing this job. I was wondering, I know the Airlift 3P controller needs to calibrate. The car has to be on the ground to calibrate. The bags are empty. How the hell am I gonna get a car like this onto the ground, onto flat ground, not onto wood, so that I can calibrate? I was like, how can you manually air up the bags? I had no idea. The answer is yes, you can. So what you're gonna do, get your wheels mounted, get ready to take the car off the lift or off your stands. You can start the car, your compressors are gonna run, they're gonna fill up the tank fully, 150 PSI, and then you can actually, on the controller, there are manual buttons. Let me hop in here and show you. They're right here. So like, this is for the back passenger rear, up, down. For the passenger front, up, down. up, down, etc. These are your preset buttons in the middle. Basically what you're gonna do is just manually air these up. I went to I think 60 or 70 PSI, and that gave enough height for the bags to be pressurized and the car to actually be on the wheels on the ground and to be able to get the jacks out from underneath. But then once the car is on the ground, you're gonna wanna calibrate it. The calibration is done, your Airlift manual will tell you how, but it's done in the controller. It takes several minutes to keep the car running, because what it's gonna do is it airs up and airs down, the different corners, different sides, it just calibrates it, hence the name. But once you're done with that, that's essentially it. Then you'll be good to take it for a test drive. I did my brakes at the same time, so I just took it around the block and bedded in the brakes, tried some different pressures, and that's essentially it. Then your bags are completely installed, and it's gonna be a project now to get your presets set. What do you want your lowest at, your normal driving height, your highest, etc., etc. Now, the last thing that I wanted to mention, which is the reason why my car is on stands right now, also regarding your presets and setting your lowest height. My car is currently using excess power Longtube headers. Some other headers I guess the excess power ones are a little on the bulky side. I've had them on since 2018, so what is that, 7 years now, and they've been great. No complaints. However, even when I was just on lowering bolts, the header collectors were the lowest part of the car. You can see them here, they're hanging down beneath. We try to get, this is roughly even with the floor pan of the car, and you'll see, I mean, they hang down. I'll put some pictures in, but they're probably almost an inch, roughly, this is just guessing, beneath the bottom of the car. They're the lowest point. Even on lowering bolts, I was banging them on speed bumps as I go over. You'll see they're a little dented. And for the 5 or so months that I've been on bags, I don't air out to 0 PSI. I'm airing out to about 30, and my car just barely rests on the headers. You can hear it thunk when it hits the ground. It's been fine for several months. I don't like it. I want to not be resting the full weight of the car on the headers, which is why I got some speed engineering headers, and that is my project for this weekend. I'll be putting some pictures up, before and after comparison as well, just to show the difference in clearance. These should hopefully give me a little more clearance based off of what I've seen. They tuck up a little better. So just keep that in mind if you're on Longtube headers, when you're doing your initial testing and airing out, keep an eye on that, because that is likely your lowest point of the car, and you don't want to slam down on it too hard or drive too low with them a 1/4 inch off the ground, for example. And just keep that in mind. So here it is all done. This is at my kind of monster truck ride height, as I like to call it. It's kind of a set it and forget it when I'm driving on really crappy roads, because this front splitter I have sticks out pretty far and is a little low. So a little bit of wheel gap, but it's nice to just set it at this ride height and just not worry. This is at about 95 to 100 PSI front and rear. And yeah, it's pretty good ride height. It's nice driving through construction, whatever. I've already broken that front splitter one time on a lower preset, so this is good to just set it at a nice high setting and not worry about it. So now from this high preset, I'll actually show airing it out. Cool thing about Airlift 3P is I'm actually controlling this from my iPad. There's an app for it actually. You can put it on your phone if you don't want to use a controller. I'm using this just so I can control it while recording. But we'll go from my high preset down to aired out. As you can see, it drops a pretty decent amount. I'm on 19s all around. I will say it's pretty impossible on 19s to go with narrow body fenders to go fender to lip, depending on their tire size mainly, because the tire actually hits the top of the inner fender liner. It's actually rests on it. There's not much to gain from trimming it or cutting it out, but it does air out really nicely. Side skirt's right on the ground. Rear looks pretty good. There's a little more to go in the rear also. I'm on 19 by 9.5 in the rear, and I've actually got a little bit of contact right here, so I wouldn't really be able to drive this low unless I trimmed it right here. But yeah, this is how it now from the same spot. I'll air it up to one of my other presets. The compressors will kick on, and I'll step forward and just show you what the compressor noise sounds like, especially with them right behind the driver's seat. They are a little noisy. I'm running dual compressors, so they only run for about 30 seconds or so, just to fill the tank back up to 150 PSI. It's really not too bad. It is a little obnoxious, but it's not terrible. So here we go. I'll just air this up to normal drive height. You can hear it a little bit. I'll touch that on that in a minute. Outside is not too bad, but inside the car, they are a little noisy inside the car. Outside, you can't really hear them that much in person. You may have also heard a clunk sound coming from one of the bags. These are double bellowed, and they fold over each other when you're aired out. Sometimes when you air up, they'll as they're expanding, they'll pop. One of the bellows will pop over. It's completely normal from what I understand. I've also heard that they may break in the more you air up and down, and that'll go away. Only one corner of mine seems to does it, the driver's front. I don't know why. Could have something to do with the angle that the holes were drilled at for the shock. If they were a little more inbound, I don't know. But yeah. Air out here one more time from the back, just for good measure. That's just about it. I hope this video was helpful. Like I said at the beginning, I did doing this myself. I discovered that there wasn't really one spot to find a lot of good info on bagging a C5 Corvette, so I just wanted to make a quick video and cover some of that. If you guys have any questions, just let me know in the comments. Thanks.